Welcome, welcome, welcome. Fedora Friday number 2. There you go. I am your host, Luke. Welcome you guys back, right? And ever since we've gone over to this this new format, just adjust my hat here because I'm kind of feeling myself in the in the screen. But yeah, we are coming back. I guess we were last together on Tuesday for Hat Tuesday. I guess the ability. Hey, how you doing, Ian? How's it going? Thank you for joining us. Hopefully this new format where I'm going essentially twice a week. Plus, I'll do a hat chat every essentially as needed. I hopefully that's working for you guys. It gives me an ability to do other things like my hat hobby, obviously my other passions in life. And that way, when we reconvene, I'll have at least some stuff to say. But some exciting hat news. So first of all, let's start with the hat of the day. This is a hat I don't wear nearly as often, but given the movie, I just felt it felt noir-ish. So this is my Kavanaugh. I believe this is from the 1960s. It's my Kavanaugh with Kavanaugh edge. I've covered Kavanaugh on my channel here several times, I think, at least twice. So you guys are all familiar with Kavanaugh the man, Kavanaugh the brand, as well as Hat Corporation of America. But yeah, I was a little surprised. I gotta admit, I was a little surprised by the fact that we had a support for Godfather Part One. I thought for sure that Godfather Part Two would take the prize for this week. And it's not like I'm disappointed, right? But I was a little surprised. I do love Godfather Part Two. I got to tell you, as I mentioned before, Godfather Part Two for me is a sequel that probably, in many ways, even surpasses the original. Right. So a lot of folks will default onto the original. They're obviously the original never takes a back seat to a lot of the sequels, but in this instance for The Godfather. And we know how highly I think of the original Godfather. I just feel like the part two kind of surpasses it. Anyway, doesn't matter. I won't steal too much thunder on Godfather Part Two. I just had it on my brain only because when I saw the results and I saw LA Confidential winning, it gave me a chance to rewatch that movie. It has been so long, it's like as I get older, and some of these movies from the 90s start becoming things that are happening like, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago. I'm like taken aback. I feel a little old, to be honest, right? I'm like 97. I was still in college, maybe a couple years from becoming a dad. But yeah, I'm very much knowing, what was going on. This is one of those movies. LA Confidential is one of those movies that I'm like, how did I not go to the theater to see this? Right? I wasn't a hat person per se, definitely not a fine hat person. But given that cast that we had there, I'm like, how did I miss that movie? Right? But the nice thing is that ultimately I did watch it, but now I got to rewatch it as a hat nerd. So we may not be able to cover. There's so many characters in that movie that we're probably not going to be able to cover them all. But I did want to make sure that I had to the degree possible, a discussion of at least the main characters, at least in relation to the hat characters. I'm going to just call them the hat characters, right? Because what we do know from LA Confidential, and again, I don't know how much of you guys, my viewing audience, has had a chance to see this movie. I'm assuming that some of you did, only because it did win the vote. But yeah, basically, not every character here, and especially the main characters, right? Let's start off a little bit with just the main characters, right? And they're all essentially hatless, right? One of the things that, and I'm actually going to change this from welcome to just Q&A, because we'll just jump right into this in terms of the characters, and you guys can either can write in your questions and just interact with me if you guys have any specific any kind of observations or anything you particularly liked about that movie, feel free to chime in, because again, that's what this is all about. This is not about Luke speaking or lecturing to you guys. I don't know all there is to know about movies. I don't know all there is to know about hats. I just happen to be a fan of movies, a fan of hats, and I try to learn. So I'm here to learn just as much as I'm here to talk. So, feel free to chime in. But this movie opens up kind of like really, right? So I think I'm not as well versed in the noir film genre. This is very much a noir film, right? I think it has everything except that it's not in black and white. It starts off with that very heavy, kind of like an advertisement for Los Angeles. And if you know LA as it is now, it exists now, you can't help but chuckle, right? At some of it's Danny DeVito's character, Sid Hutchins, and he's talking about Los Angeles. I was like, it's the beacon of the working class American. It's basically everything you want it to be. But like he's kind of doing it tongue in cheek, right? What he's really getting at is like, oh yeah, that's what we want you to think, right? Especially in Hollywood. But just like Stallone says, it's not all sunshines and rainbow, right? There's a very gritty city, and he actually gets into that and starts talking about the gangsterism that exists in LA. He talks about Mickey Cohen. I believe Mickey Cohen was a real gangster. I'm not as familiar with Mickey Cohen. So those folks that are really like gangster historians could tell me whether Mickey Cohen. I know the name Cohen is definitely a gangster. It's a gangster name. There was a gentleman. This is actually a fat little factoid. There was a Jewish gangster with the last name Cohen. I believe his name was Gary Cohen. It could be Gary Cohen. But he was infamous for punching out Frank Sinatra. So Mr. Cohen, I'm gonna not to rename his name because I don't remember his first name, but Mr. Cohen happened to be part of this casino, I believe in Las Vegas, and the story goes that that business wanted to cut Frank Sinatra off in terms of his gambling debts, and Frank Sinatra was a notorious hothead. So Frank Sinatra stormed in and started making a big mess out of the casino. And ultimately set up a meeting with Mr. Cohen. I think something happened where I think he flipped up a desk on Mr. Cohen, and Mr. Cohen proceeded to get up and socked Frank Sinatra and knocked his two front teeth. I believe it was two front teeth out of his mouth, clear off. Ian say Mickey Cohen was I'm assuming you mean was a gangster. Thank you, Ian. I believe that's what you were trying to allude to. But yeah, so Frank Sinatra, the great Frank Sinatra, which we know is synonymous with hats. That's the reason why I kind of felt compelled, was a gangster. Thank you, Ian. Thank you for confirming that. I thought so, but I didn't want to say that as fact without getting at least some sort of verification. So Ian confirms that Mickey Cohen was indeed a gangster. I'm not sure if Mickey Cohen was the same gentleman I'm talking about that punched out Frank Sinatra, but that's something, Ian, if you want to say Cohen, the guy that punched out Frank Sinatra, it was a big deal, right? So that I've actually, I happen to know family members that have connections to Frank Sinatra. I won't kind of divulge that, but I do have family that have ties to show business. And what they've, when I've told that story, some of them have looked a little quizzical because it's like, you didn't do something like that to Frank Sinatra, right? If you knew Frank Sinatra, like the guy and the folks that he had behind him, right? That you don't do that to Frank Sinatra, right? But this guy, Cohen, the one that punched out Frank Sinatra, he wasn't a nobody. He was a guy that was very well connected, and he was connected with the Jewish organized crime, which tend to be a little bit more low key. So, obviously everybody knows about Meyer Lansky, and they know about Bugsy Siegel, very famous Jewish gangsters. But yeah, Cohen, Ian says, head of the Cohen family sentenced to Alcatraz, but was the only prisoner ever bailed out. Wow, interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, so Mickey Cohen plays a tangential role in LA Confidential, he's kind of like the guy that was running things and ultimately gets convicted for tax evasion, a la Al Capone, right? They use the Capone strategy with Mickey Cohen in the movie. I don't know if that actually happened in real life, but we do know that that's how they got Al Capone, and maybe that's how they got the real Mickey Cohen. But according to the movie, he got thrown into jail, and that left a void in the city of LA, right? So like, Mickey Cohen was controlling all the heroin in Los Angeles. When he was jailed, that left a vacuum, and now folks were jockeying for position to try to take up the mantle, that to fill that business role, right? And that's kind of what sets in motion the chain of events in this movie. So right away, right? So I don't know if you guys, for those folks that are new, you guys know I am a psychologist by training, right? In psychology, we are very big fans of frameworks, right? Essentially, frameworks are just ways, neat taxonomies that we're able to use to know and kind of classify things. And then when I'm watching this movie, I just kept thinking of the M's, right? Everything was M's, right? Not the names, but my thinking of what those characters were. And right away, we're introduced to Bud White, who's I think of as the muscle. He's the muscle character in the movie, right? He's played by Russell Crowe. Very interesting backstory about Bud White. I know if you say it quick enough, it sounds like I'm trying to say Bud Light, but it's Bud White. So I don't know if that was on purpose, to be honest, but Bud White is right away a character that is the muscle. He's a police officer that is no stranger to violence. You see that. And by the way, if you haven't already known, Fedora Friday is full of spoilers. Don't watch this video if this live stream if you're not comfortable with spoilers, because I'm not gonna hold anything back. So this is your chance right now to go. But anyway, Bud White is played by Russell Crowe. Everybody knows Russell Crowe. Obviously Gladiator, American Gangster. There's so many great Russell Crowe movies. But it goes to show you what kind of cast we were dealing with here. I want to say this was pre Gladiator, Russell Crowe. To be honest, I think Gladiator came out in '99 or 2000. But this is pre Gladiator, Russell Crowe. He's got the tough guy act, down, but he doesn't wear a hat. He's the muscle guy, right? Then we're also introduced into Kevin Spacey's character, right? Jack Vincennes. Jack Vincennes. Well, actually, technically, we're introduced to Danny DeVito's character, but I'll leave him because he's one of the hat guys. But we're introduced into Jack Vincennes, and he's very much the moxie or the megalomaniac, right? In keeping with those M's. He's that showbiz cop, right? That cop that everybody talks about, that's on the newspapers. He's trying to get into the papers. He's trying to become famous. And he happens to be a consultant on a cop show. I forget the name of the cop show right off the top of my head, but he's a consultant in the cop show. He was very little known at the time. Yes, he was. Yeah. I think Gladiator was probably the movie that put Russell Crowe on the map, to be honest. But everybody knows Russell Crowe from the Gladiator. He knows that he's a tough guy character, and he very much plays a tough guy character in this movie. He's the muscle. Russell Crowe. I don't know if that was a typo, Ian, but I chuckled. Russell Crowe. I guess he did. He did crowed. He crowed very well. Actually, I mean, I don't know if he did much. I don't think he came across as saying a lot of intelligent things in this role. He was the muscle. He was a meathead, right? Right. Everybody knows about the meathead. If you're from the Northeast, like from the Jersey, New York area, you talk about the meathead guy. Kind of like a muscle-bound guy that you just don't want to cross, but he looks tough. But this guy actually is tough. So you see that right away, right? He goes and he saves the woman that's being victimized by her husband. He just camps out. His partner's watching, right? His partner's actually getting drunk in the back. I believe is Richard Stenz, Dick Stenz, Stensland. He's getting drunk while Russell Crowe is just steaming in the car watching this scene play out where a gentleman is seemingly arguing with his with his wife and maybe smacking her around. And then Russell Crowe comes in, so it tells you a lot about the character. He doesn't wear a hat, but it tells you a lot about his character, that he doesn't. One, he's not to be trifled with physically, and also he's there to defend women at all costs, right? Almost unapologetically. He's going to be there defending women. We also, like I said, we're introduced into Jack Vincennes, who's the moxie or the megalomaniac, the showbiz, the Hollywood cop, right? Kevin Spacey, right? What do I have to say about Kevin Spacey, right? We know a lot about his off the camera issues, right? Somebody that is no stranger to controversy, right? But I'm going to talk about Kevin Spacey, the actor. Wow, what can I say about Kevin Spacey that you don't already know, right? I don't know where he was at in 1997 in his juncture, his film career. He probably wasn't known. He wasn't as famous as Kevin Spacey is now, but we know like Glengarry Glen Ross. The movie he did about the crooner. What's the famous crooner? Oh geez, why am I blanking on him? If you guys know the famous crooner, he played Mac the Knife. Hey Paul, how's it going, buddy? Paul, if you want to jump in here, even if you didn't watch the movie, that is okay. Feel free. Or if you want to hang out here, that's fine. But I hope you're having a great day, Paul. It's good to see you. But I was just introducing the characters of the movie. All right, excellent. I'm glad to hear it, Paul. I was just going into the characters of the movies and how this movie started. I have no idea if you saw the movie, Paul. It doesn't really matter to me. So don't let that stop you from getting on camera and maybe showing some of your hats, right? Winter Jolt is LA Confidential is a great film. Yes, it is. And then Good Morning. Yeah, Good Morning. Watching while at work. All right, Winter Jolt. Make sure that you don't get in trouble, right? I don't want to be somebody that gets anybody in trouble. But the nice thing is I tend not to be I tend not to drop too many curses in my live streams. So hopefully that'll assist you if you need to like put the volume up. I'm just talking about movies and about hats in movies. So welcome here. Just finishing a hat. All right. I'll jump on in a couple minutes. Excellent, Paul. I will wait and I'll just bide my time before I move further. But Paul of Passion for Hats, make sure you support Paul. I don't know. I'm going to kind of confess a little bit here. Man, I can't wait to ask. I'm going to stop. And once Paul gets on here, I'm going to stop and make sure Paul tells us about the hat that he's working on because, And then Winter Jolt said, you are good, got headphones on. Thank you, my friend. Thank you. And I get to have you. Again, Winter Jolt, just to give you, a little bit of skinny of how things work. This is Fedora Friday. We always focus on either a film or musician or some sort of aspect of pop culture. And I try to be very interactive with it. I usually have something prepared, but it's very much an interactive piece. Guy Pearce and James Cromwell were English actors. Yes. Hey, Paul, how's it going?
Oh, good. Thanks, you.
You're muted, Paul.
I'm good.
I'm not getting audio from you, Paul. I don't know if you have your mic off. It could be that you're muted.
Okay.
So we'll just wait for you to get back.
Get
back on audio. But yeah, I don't know. Oh, let me see if I can unmute. Maybe I can unmute you. I don't know. I can't unmute you. It says that you're on mute.
Oh, no good.
Yeah, we're still not hearing you. It looks like you're not muted. At least from what I can tell. It could just be that your mic is disconnected, Paul.
Yeah, don't worry. I'll come out.
But that's okay. Keep going. I'll just keep yakking here. But yeah, basically, we have what our format here. Oh, wait a minute. Sorry, that's me. Sorry, Paul. Sorry. Okay, thank you. Paul, Ian, that was very helpful. Paul, come back. It was me. It turned out that I was muted on my audio, so that's why you couldn't hear you. Thank you. Come back, Paul. We'll wait. I shoot away Paul by mistake. Ian, that was very helpful. Thank you for my faithful moderator. Yeah, that was totally me, Paul. If you're watching this, I had you off of mute, and I'll explain that once you get back on here. Yeah, it was that was totally me. Jesus. It goes to show you that we're a live show, and you know what? We have mistakes. I make them. I will apologize to Paul as soon as he gets back. He's probably listening to this, but just in case, Paul, it was totally me, not you. So yeah, we'll wait for Paul. But yeah, such a great cast in this movie. I can't wait. I will summarize for Paul. That way we can kind of get a conversation going. Let's see. Hey, Paul, that was totally me.
Can you hear me?
That was my fault.
Oh,
so
okay.
I had yeah, you were totally okay. So just we're a live show here, and I am definitely not. So Ian could hear you, so he verified, and that's how I knew to check my settings.
Okay.
So yeah, Paul, before we even get either anything about movies, tell me about this hat you were working on. And I see something in the corner of my eye that is catching my eye. But
I'll let this one?
Well, yes, but you know what I'm talking about. Yeah,
I know what you're talking about. It's this baby. I mean, wow, wow. I mean,
yeah.
No, it's like it's blue. Obviously, well, no, you might be black there actually. It's blue.
It does look blackish, a color on my screen, but yeah, I do know that it's blue.
I think it's the lights. I've got obviously a light on in my study here, but I just think that's come up quite nicely. I mean, it looks very nice and formal. You could wear that with a jacket, or you could wear it casually, wear it up. And it's pretty good. So so I will be boxing that up over the weekend and weighing it and everything, and then I'll reach out to you and we can see what's what.
Yeah.
But, I was just putting the final touches on the brim trim and everything. So.
Paul, thank you. That looks gorgeous, guys. I guess I'll let Paul kind of talk about like that ribbon, right? Because that you made mention. Oh man, that's gorgeous. That's gorgeous.
So it's a cross grain ribbon that I was very fortunate because there's only a couple of suppliers here in the UK that sell it in bulk, and it was the last reel for this year. And it's I think what happens is they make batches of this ribbon, and they're all different different dye colors, if you like. They sell them through the summer, and then the bright colors they don't bother doing through the winter, and I get that. But I was fortunate enough to get this last one, and I went this morning to actually do this. So I was going to have it done with lots of time before 4 o'clock, only to find I didn't have the right thread. I had a thread that was going to show, and to be honest, I wanted it the same orange so that it wouldn't show when I've sewed it around the brim here. So I've been out and traveled around and got the right color, and I'm pleased with that. In fact, so much so, I'm thinking, what else can I use the orange for? Because it is, it's pretty fun,
Yeah. And Paul, I actually not to change the subject, but you just totally reminded me of an idea I wanted to run by you, and actually I'll just share it with the audience. It relates to the other hat, the one with the silver belly. You mentioned that it had a hole in it.
Do you mean the black one? No, that's
yeah. That
one
has a hole in it. We talked about putting a silver belly ribbon around that. And I just thought of an idea, and I don't know if it's even possible, but if it had a hole in the side of it, I would not mind the idea of making a little bit of using that silver belly ribbon that you have to just do a little X, kind of like, hey, this has a little it's almost like a Band-Aid.
Oh right, yeah. So was on the black one then it's currently got the black trim. You want the silver belly trim just around the crown, not on the side.
Oh no, and then maybe I just didn't communicate it well. My hope for that hat was to put a silver belly ribbon and trim around that, only because it would look like the hat that you made for your customer. And then my hope is okay, I don't know the size of that hole, but if it was a sizable hole in the brim, I do not mind having a hat with a matching silver belly with like a little cross, essentially like a little X to kind of signify, hey, this hat was injured in the line of in the making, and we made a happy accident out of it.
Let me let me knock something up, and I'll temporarily put on there, show it to you. see what you think, and then we'll take it from there.
Perfect.
Because it's only a
Sounds
very, very
good.
pinprick, you know. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
Cool.
yeah. Hopefully, the audience will indulge me here as I talk to my hatter in real time. But Paul, like I said, if you guys are new here, Paul is a hatter from the UK. He's a regular here on our channel. We're happy to have him. You know, I believe Winter Jolt. I don't know if you care to me to reveal your identity, but I'm pretty sure I know who you are. You know, and if you're okay with that, just let me know. I just don't want to like out you before you know, before the audience if you don't want to be. But yeah, Paul is the hatter I'm working with right now. You guys, if you guys follow me on Facebook, you might have seen a hat that I just showed you. All right. So Winter Jolt is Joshua. Joshua is another hatter, you know, that just joined the Good Luke's board of directors, and is somebody that Paul has been kind of mentoring from afar. Paul, is that accurate?
I'm sorry, I was just reading what he was saying.
Well, I was explaining to the audience that you were essentially kind of mentoring Joshua from afar, and maybe I overstepped my words here, but is that accurate?
Yeah, I was just helping Joshua. He reached out about a couple of things, and as I've said on here before, you know, I'm quite happy to work with other hatters. I've got, you know, I've got a hatter down in Cornwall that I talk to occasionally. That's a young lady. Another one in and around the area I'm living here. He's reached out to me, and we're going to meet up and have a coffee and chat. And more of them are reaching out. And you know, when you get to my age, you know, I've probably got another 5, I hope 10 years in me of making hats. But what as a legacy, I'd like to leave behind, you know, 1,000 videos on YouTube. I've got 100 up there at the moment, so I've got a long way to go. I'd like to, you know, maybe work with a few youngsters that come through and actually can make a living out of making hats. You know, and along the way, you know, I can enjoy the journey, and you know, because I guess all the way through my life, when I've been in a boardroom or I've been building businesses for people or for myself, I found, looking back, it was quite selfish. And actually, whilst you might take on a few apprentices and help a few people along the way, ultimately you're doing it for yourself and your family and what have you. And now it's time to perhaps give a little back. And the hat thing is a nice way of doing that, you know.
I love that story, Paul, because essentially you kind of your hat journey. I echo what Ian just mentioned. Your hat journey kind of is tied in with your career journey as well as your life journey, and it's a beautiful story, right? Because you just showed your progression. You know, you shared your story many times, and I've never stopped. I never get tired of it because you never know who's watching, right? So, you know, obviously we're a little bit more advanced in age than maybe some of the folks, maybe like Morgan, who's also like one of my moderators. But the nice thing is that I feel like when we share our life story, our hat story, our career stories, it's beneficial, right? I mean, I think just even sharing that story has already made, I think, a difference. I think it makes a difference for me. You know, our stories are still being written. We're still writing our own story. Just like our hat collections are not stagnant. We're not stagnant, at least up until that point where we're no longer here. And I really love the fact that you set that example, Paul, because I think that will be, it has that ripple effect, right? I think it has that ripple effect. And then Joshua says here, that is one thing I have noticed about a lot of hatters, still keep to the mindset that we must keep to ourselves on how the craft is done. Paul and Hornskov has helped me out a lot. Hey, if that's not an endorsement, I don't know what is.
Thank you, Josh.
Yeah, I just, for me, like when I see that happening, because I've said it before, I feel like we have more to gain from collaboration than we have from secrecy, and this whole idea of the secret sauce. Again, it ties into my notion of expanding the pie, right? We tend to think in narrow views. I think we tend to do that when we start younger and we're establishing ourselves. We start saying, okay, I gotta go and beat, you know, I gotta compete. And there's nothing wrong with competition. Trust me, I'm not poo-pooing competition. But I feel like teamwork, right? The whole I, the we, right? There's that famous. I'm gonna just let in on like this whole idea of right of we-ness, right? In psychology, we call it we-ness, right? You want to have a really big we-ness. You want to have such a big we-ness that you give people we-ness envy. That's a psychology joke.
Cool.
But that might be a little crass.
Yeah.
But the idea in the spirit is something that's really powerful in that the we is greater than the me, right? In sports, just like in sports.
I think part of you've heard me mention on here before that that my wife and I are getting the house ready to sell so we can get a bigger house and actually put together a work office in the garden so that it can be my studio and my hatting production area. And one of the things I want to do is invite people in for hat days so they can learn and actually make a hat themselves. And if they want to come in and pay them out for the time, etc. But also those hatters that want to come in. That, like, I know Joshua. I think he does some very different hats to myself, and actually. All the other youngsters I'm working with, we've only 3 or 4, but their hat styles are different to mine. And here's the thing: I'd love to spend a day where they are challenged by me to make a hat that I make, and I'm challenged by them to make a hat that they make. And that then expands your experience, because whilst I could probably do quite well, and they could probably do quite well, but actually when we're together and we're asking each other, oh well, what do I do in this case, or what do I do in that? And you have a great day, I hope, and you have some fun, and at the end of it, you've got something that's a little bit different. So these are the sort of things that are going on in my mind at the moment, to be able to try and get more youngsters to come into making hats, because even if you use it as your second income, and you sell 3, 4, 5 hats a month, that's a lovely place to be. You can be creative and you can meet some nice people, and it helps. Your day job, if it's not creative and it's not quite what you really want to do, it helps you get by.
Yeah, and I there's a couple of thoughts that I had, Paul, as you mentioned that. One, I couldn't help but think of this as very similar to like the martial arts, right? The martial arts, you have definitely. And then so you already got some thumbs up here from the audience. But very much akin to martial arts, the idea of the lineage, right? Even though this is not a martial art, it is a craft, very similar, right? In terms of, there's a technique that you're trying to teach. There's a technique that you're also, and while you're teaching, you're also learning yourself, right? Teachers in the martial arts teach, but they also learn as they're teaching. I think that's a very powerful method for learning, is teaching. And it's something very beautiful about having a lineage and say, okay, well, when somebody says, like, let's say Joshua would go to Paul and say, Paul, who taught you? And Paul can go and go over, like, folks like that influenced him, like, obviously Mikhail, and you got Hornskov, and you have all the various influences, Robert Galt, whoever it might be that influenced you and got you to where you're at. Because essentially Joshua will now inherit from Paul, not just Paul's knowledge, but essentially a piece of Hornskov, a piece of Hofbud, a piece of Wolfbray, and all the other influences that got Paul to where he's at. And you create just a beautiful lineage there that Joshua will pay forward when it comes down to his turn to pass it on and pay it forward. I think there's something very beautiful about that.
Yeah, well, I hope so, and it's it's what's keeping me going. I mean, honestly, when you've done 3 or 4 hours of painting, and I absolutely hate painting, and you're against a deadline, it's been hard. And then what's been lovely, actually, I've had 2 or 3 hats to do this last week, and I can be found at sort of 10 o'clock at night, in my study here, and playing some music and just sort of soothing and enjoying the remainder of the day. It's great.
Yeah. Well, Paul, I mean, I don't want to forget Joshua, because Joshua revealed, I'm going to put this up, an achievement. Joshua just got his first customer.
Yeah.
So I want to celebrate that because, it's not like this is where hatters can talk about their wins, right? And without being like, right. So obviously there's going to be a certain level of humbleness that some of the you gentlemen have, but I don't want you to come here and be too humble where you're not able to share your wins because, I feel like sometimes we don't celebrate those wins enough. And I know I want to celebrate them here on the channel. And Joshua, who hasn't joined us on video yet, but this is his first time joining us as a participant, he just shared that with me, and hopefully he doesn't mind. He was kind of like excited, but also nervous, right? So, Paul, I mean, is that something like as a hatter? Yeah, definitely, definitely.
Yeah.
Big applause to Joshua. That's something I'm curious to ask Paul about, like his first customer. Did you have something similar?
Yeah. I'll tell you what I did. And I don't think this is the same as most hatters. I went down the route of thinking that if I was going to become reasonable at being a hatter, the more hats I made, the more mistakes I could make, and in fact, the better the hats would come for when I wanted to sell some. And so I started making stock, and I made probably my first 25 hats. I actually took them all to pieces and made them again, and because by the time I got to the 25th hat, there were things that I'd learnt that, as an example, I was making the band and putting it over, and then making the bow and then sticking it on and gluing it and so on. And then actually, when I watched Hornscough, they make the bow and then make the old band all in one, and then sew it on, and that's what I did. And it's so much easier and better. And it's there's lots of other sort of nuances that you learn going along. But I think the thing was that I learned, and it's something that because I've been in retail and I've been in manufacturing and so on, is that it's not just the hat or the item that you're selling that is the experience for the customer. They're probably buying it as a personal reward to themselves. Either it's a hobby or they've had something that they want to remark as an achievement or something. Now, having done that, it's very important that you have a nice hat box. You have a letter in there from what do you call it, from you to the customer. You have instructions in there about how to look after the hats, because most people don't know about how to look after a wool, a felt, a beaver felt, hats. And when they start investing as what can be a significant amount of money to some people, they really need to have that support. And the other thing is to make yourself easy enough access for the customer. I've got customers now that have bought, they bought their first hat from me. They were very sort of reserved about, who is this guy? This is a bit weird, and let's go through it. How should I pay him? And all this, and what happens if I don't like the hat? And and once you've gone through all that, you make people aware. I mean, I have people ringing me up that might have bought hats 6 months ago and just asked me, look, I've just gone out in the rain. I've got a little mark on my gross grain. What do I do? And things like that. So I think your first hat will be very important to you, but I think you've got to also be aware that you may have to work with the customer on it, or you may be very it may be a fantastic hat and he's very satisfied.
Paul, you say so many great things, and this is why I love having you on. One, I'm going to reiterate what you stated, which is they're buying many respects. They're buying the process, not just the product.
Yeah, and it's the memory of receiving it. Yeah,
correct. They're buying a piece of Paul and a piece of the process with Paul when they buy one of his creations, and that's really important. The other thing that Paul mentioned that really hits home is the idea that for many folks, I mean, this is a purchase to reward themselves. If you're a watch guy, kind of like I'm a watch guy, I don't own a Rolex, I don't own an Omega, right? So this is probably my fanciest watch is a Longines. Good brand, but it's not a Rolex and it's not an Omega. But when they buy a watch like that, they're doing it because maybe they just got a promotion. Maybe they got this big boat. Maybe they made partner at their firm. Maybe they just got married. They're doing it to commemorate a major marker or a major milestone in their life. And that's why I got to think that when you choose a hatter to do that, I think that's already, you already won as a hatter, right? I think.
Yeah, it's a very good idea. I mean, you talk about the watches. I remember back in the 80s, I think it was 90s. I'd helped somebody open a business, and it was very successful opening. And I ended up with the gold and stainless steel Rolex. So that was a lovely thing. I mean, but you're right. I mean, it would be lovely to think that that there are enough hatters out there, and it becomes a thing that we're considered for prizes for people, or because not many people go out and splash out a few £100, a couple of hundred, say £200 on a hat. Every season. It's something that would be a considered purchase, as you might say. And if it was as a gift because of an achievement, then going through the process of actually sitting with a hatter, the hatter asking all the questions, and there are quite a few questions, but I think it's a nice, for me as the hatter, it's a nice sort of 45-minute to an hour phone call, and you get to know the person, they get to know you, you show them a few hats, you show them a few felts, you talk about the different weights, you go through the process, and at the end of it, they're sort of thinking, okay, all right, well, okay, and you confirm it back so that both of you understand that you've got the right understanding, and then the magic starts. It's brilliant. And then of course when you go back to the client and you talk to them about the pleasure that you might have had, and the other thing, Josh, that I do is I actually make when I say a video, sometimes I'll do a proper video. A lot of the time I'll take still shots of working on a hat, and then I'll do a video commentary to go along with me in the corner, just talking about what I went through and what I did, and then and sending that to the customer, because there's bragging rights in owning a nice hat. You go along to an event, we'll go along to your friend's house and talk that, and then you've got this video on your phone. So well, look, this is what the guy did. Look, it's blooming amazing. Well, it's blooming amazing. But it's a nice story to tell. So just consider something like that. Taking some photographs of the different stages, and we all do it because we're putting it up on social media and stuff. So it's not as though it's something new.
And this is where I get to go, and my wackiness can potentially help you hatters, right? Because because I happen to be somebody that's into watches, again, not the same way as I am into hats. Let's see what Josh just said. Joshua, sorry, I didn't mean to call you Josh. Joshua, I plan on taking pictures and video and or live streaming. I love it, because Paul started doing that. I think that's where hatters are going to start separating themselves, I think. But the next way that hatters can separate themselves are like something like this live stream, right? Paul, somebody that wants to buy one of Paul's creations can jump on here, or they can jump on Paul's channel, or Joshua, you might have a channel and they can jump on your channel. Okay, thank you, Josh. I'm going to call you Josh because that might be a little bit a little easier for me. So thank you. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't disrespectful. But this is a way the hatters are going to do this, and then interacting with their customers, right? And not necessarily customers that are customers right now, but customers that are potential customers, right? So like you talk to Luke, and you're going to ask me, hey, Luke, do you have any ideas about like where hatting should go? And without checking on whether this is already a thing, the his and her hats. People buy things for occasions. I know this probably already exists, but watches, we know that there's his and her watches. His and her hats should be a thing, if it's not already a thing. Yeah. I think that's where this is going, where you want to really get commemorate a wedding, his and her hats. So Ian says, yesterday friends visited me. I showed them my new hat from Paul, and they were so complimentary. Of course, Paul's got great stuff, man. I'm glad. I didn't know, Ian, that you had already purchased something from Paul, but I'm happy to hear it. And you know what that means, Ian? I got to see photos, or it didn't happen. So you make sure you send some photos in that group chat, Ian, unless you don't want to, then in which case I won't begrudge you. But you don't have to twist my arm to kind of get me to go and look at some hats. It's the way, right? That's the best, like for me, that's the price of entry can't be beat, right? I get to look at another beautiful hat without having to pay for it. everybody wins, right? There's no loser.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I think. Oh, Ian says you saw it. Okay, I might have seen it then. Oh,
It was
maybe
on
I
the
did
video.
see it.
If you see
Okay,
my
sorry,
YouTube
Ian.
channel,
I
you
look
wouldn't
at
have
a
known.
lot of hats, and sometimes I don't always remember. Plus, I'm getting up there in age, you know.
Yeah. If you look at my YouTube channel, it's the green and
Oh, it's the green. Okay, yeah, that's
yeah.
gorgeous.
Yeah.
That I commented on that video. That was gorgeous.
You
So I
did.
did see it.
Yeah.
Man, lucky Ian. I didn't like. I was gonna guess. So my guess was that it was Morgan. I thought that was Morgan's hat only because it looked like something that Morgan would get, but it didn't dawn on me that that was Ian's hat I was looking at. Beautiful hat, by the way. So Josh says, "Oh, I kid you not! On my Instagram, I posted my first hat and my fifth hat I made for my wife. It was a his and her hat. There you go. See?
Yep.
But again, it's one of those things that sometimes repetition is good because I feel like we're so focused on our male customers that we forget that the 50% of the population is women, and right, Morgan is one of them, and some of them are probably a little gun shy about like buying a hat. But if you present it as this is something I wear with my husband, now you've already taken a lot of some of that steam off of that trepidation. Oh, I go out every time I go out. If you look on Facebook, you will see a lot of husband and wife fedora wearers, and it's beautiful. I love seeing it.
I think we're a bit far behind the Americans at the moment in the UK on that respect. But it's funny. Recently, I mean, I set up my website and my YouTube channel to be very sort of male orientated and focused, and it wasn't any other reason other than I was producing trilbies and fedoras.
Yeah,
and that's going to be the core of my business, if you like. But since then I've gone on to the Cattleman Crease open road style and things like the a few other designs anyway. But recently I've had 2 or 3 women actually buy some of the smaller sizes of the fedoras. So I've actually bought some not bright pink, but some pastel pink rabbit fur caplins from Fepsa, and they're to make some hats for women. I'm not sure about doing a his and hers, but you don't know in this day and age.
Right. You don't want a bunch of hats and then you find out that nobody's buying all the hats, but it just sounds like it's something that should be a thing. And again, Paul, I love hearing from Paul and from Ian because they're my ears, my eyes and ears from the UK. And it's important to know what's going on across the pond because you never know, right? We may be leading the way in this respect, but the UK may be leading the way in some other respect. That everything always finds its way. It's always a circle sometimes, right? And it might be more like a spiral, right? So the circle might not be recreated, but some sort of spin on an old concept that just happens to take hold. And Paul, ever the good hatter, Paul's not gonna like ignore that demand. Paul's gonna be like, okay, how do I make this? How do I fulfill that demand? And
I mean, the thing that I showed you, I just saw it at the back of my head, so Josh wouldn't have seen this one. But this Nick Fouquet, this is a hat that I've been trying to get hold of for a long time, and partly I bought it because I love the design and I thought that would be nice for me. And it is very similar to the hat that I've got on and the other styles that I do with the higher crown and so on, and the 50 mil bands. But this is an example where we take American style and American concept and actually anglicize it, bring it into the UK and give it an English feel. And I've sat here probably for an hour or two just looking at the way that this hat has been constructed and how he's done the various things. And I'll learn more from buying this. In fact, that's what I do a lot of the time. And at Joshua, whilst you're on, it's worth thinking about buying some old hats. You may have done it already, deconstructing them and actually learning how they've actually been put together and see if you can emulate that way of doing things. Because again, that's another way that I learned an awful lot. So so that's an American hat and brought to the UK, and
that's a gorgeous hat.
I'll certainly be buying some straws next year and building something like this. But yeah, I love it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and we mentioned that. Nick Fouquet, I love it. Yeah, so the reputation is out there. Again, Nick Fouquet is a name that I heard, but I guess Paul really kind of solidified the status of Nick. And Nick is, we've talked about Nick in terms of a little bit more guarded, We talked about that it being unfortunate, but we don't begrudge Nick for doing that. It's just one of the things, it's kind of a feather in his cap that people want to learn from him so much, and he has to kind of like keep everybody at bay. But luckily, other hatters have filled that void for Paul and for Josh. Josh says, yes, I've been doing that a lot with thrift finds. Yes.
Good.
As a vintage hat nerd myself, even though I don't look at it from a deconstruction, but we talked about me potentially at some point making a hat. If I do go that, I have lots of fodder. I have my hat walls coming together now. One of these days, I will probably do a little panorama. But the front wall, you've already seen Michael Corleone in the front. Michael Corleone from Sicily is now living in a different room. He's in the room right next door. He's not hung up. But now Michael Corleone, the Hamburg, with the Hamburg, if you've seen that photo, he's now hanging up here. And then he's right above my Lord's hat from Berg. And then right on each side of the Lord's hat is my Moore's Hamburg on the left. And to the right is my Dobbs Hamburg. So, just to show Michael Corleone a little bit of respect, we have the proper Hamburgs and then the Lord's hat right in the middle, only because that's the only Lord's hat that I own. I might never own another Lord's hat because I just don't see him that often.
One of the things I've been thinking about, and maybe you or anybody on here might have any thoughts on it, but we as in the year 2025, we've got bigger heads than people had back in the 40s, 50s of the 1900s, and therefore there are some beautiful hats that aren't of our size. Yet, in finding those hats, they've clearly been used and they are delicate. So my thought was to actually get a classic hat like a Borsellino or something, or a Stetson or whatever, and then copy it and make a 2025 version of it and sell the two. One is like in a case or in a as a museum piece, a hobbyist piece. The other one is where the user can actually wear it. So I don't know. It's like, what happens in 100 years' time when these hats are literally falling to bits? How do we preserve the shapes, the styles, and everything else? We have to find a way. And that was, one of the things I've been playing around with. Are people going to pay for something like that? Because it is very specialist.
Actually, you just reminded me of a conversation I just had with Steve Heck. You guys, Steve joined us. For you guys that have not joined us, Steve Heck is a gentleman that I've met on the Fedora Lounge. He happens to be an expert in German, Austrian hats, particularly about the manufacturing process. Even though he doesn't make hats, he just is a nerd that is really focused on the manufacturing process, in particular, those that happened way back when. And he's going to come on the show. He was slated to come on this Tuesday, but I had a work situation where we decided that he would come on the following Tuesday because he wants a little more time to prepare. He's just one of those guys that really wants to get it right. Even though I told him, I said, you know what, whatever you give us is going to be great. But, if you want to do it next Tuesday, that's fine. So instead of this Tuesday, I think Hat Tuesday number 3, I believe he's going to join us on Hat Tuesday number 4. And I look forward to it. I already got a little bit of a preview of some of the material he's going to cover. And I'm excited. So Paul, you're welcome. Josh, Ian, everybody that's on this stream, obviously, even if you're not on the stream, you're welcome to join that. He is a treasure at the Fedora Lounge. And I really hope that he comes back and keeps coming back here because he has that level of knowledge. And besides that, he has great hats. Great hats. Oh my gosh. I could go on and on about some of the hats that this gentleman has. But hopefully he'll have some on his head and then he'll take us around his area at some point. But I'm excited already about that episode. So look out for Steve Heck. He is going to talk about, great German and Austrian brands and mostly about the manufacturing process and some of that lost art. And I can't wait. So look forward to that. What else? There was one other thing I wanted to mention before we go back into the particulars, but I'm going to mention the hat giveaway at 100 subscribers. If you haven't subscribed yet, at 100 subscribers, I'm going to do a video on this Knox. It's a little bit moth-bitten, as you can see, but it's not like totally gone. It doesn't have any moth babies. This hasn't had any new moth bites since it's become in my possession. and I've had this for probably a little over a year already. But it's a great hat. It actually was a hat that was a Knox commissioned by, I believe, oh gosh, what's the name of the company? It's a company that's something built. I forget. I'll mention it I'll do a video on it and I'll talk about it. But I'm going to give away this hat to somebody. I might actually ask you to cover shipping, but some lucky subscriber is going to win that hat. And Ian says, I plan to be there. My fluent German may be helpful. Hey, it might. Just like Tom Hagen said, it might. It just might. So if it doesn't fit you, you have the option of saying, Luke, that hat doesn't fit me. It's a 7 1/4, so it's about 58 centimeters. If my math is mathing, if it doesn't fit you, I'll still send it to you if you want it. But maybe you want me to send it to somebody else, or just say, hey, bring it back and pick the next person, and then maybe you'll win the next one. I don't know. I'm very flexible with this. I don't even know exactly what I'm going to do, but that's my thought. I'm going to confer with my board of directors, and we'll let the board decide. But I want to talk about that, and then let's get back. I guess let's get back into the main topic here. Let's see what it says here. Your hat is a Trachtenhut. Trachtenhut. That's my best German, is a Trachtenhut. I don't know what Trachtenhut means, but does that mean like Alpine hat? I always call it my Alpine hat, even though that's probably a little bit more Swiss sounding, right? I just bought a Swiss wool hat, by the way. It's a crushable wool hat, and it's Swiss. It's by a brand called Lurati, I believe it's called. I could have butchered that, but I think it's a Lurati. Never saw the brand before. I researched it a little bit, but I'll profile that later. It doesn't fit me. It's much too big, but it's crushable. We talked about the value of a crushable hat. I just picked one up, and I picked up, a couple other flat caps. So I'll profile that later. But back to LA Confidential, while we wait to see if Ian has anything on Trachtenhut. But Paul, I don't know how much of it you caught about the beginning about this film. Also, I don't know if you even got the chance to watch it, but it's okay.
No, I haven't. But I caught whilst I was working on your hat. I was listening in, but obviously not commenting because I was busy. But fire away, and I'll do my best to support you if I can.
No worries, no worries. So we talked about, like I said, and then Ian, thank you for the explanation. Trachten is the national costume that varies from state to state. Ian, you are a wealth of knowledge. Again, your time in Germany is probably coming really useful. Steve, who's coming on here, he said he wants a very interactive show. That's his preference. So he's not going to mind. Like he's going to have stuff prepared, kind of like I do, but he's going to be ready for your questions. And Ian, it sounds like you're going to be the perfect person to ask questions, because I just don't know enough about Germany and Austria, let alone their hats. Other than what you learn in history books, right? But we'll all kind of combine to kind of come up with and ask some really good questions, anticipate questions that our audience might have. And I think we're going to have a really great show. So look forward to that. Thank you, Ian. I appreciate it. So yeah, back to the movie. This is based on my psychology, right? This is a movie I didn't watch when it first came out, just to give you like the cliff notes on what I already discussed. But I always think of movies, as like something, I always come up with something psychological, right? And I'm a big believer in frameworks. So I came up with the M's. When I was thinking, I was like, okay, this movie's about the M's. So I introduced the concept of the muscle, right? So Russell Crowe's character is a bruiser kind of cop. I called him the muscle. Kevin Spacey played a very Hollywood type cop, kind of an ego cop. So I called him the Moxie. He's the Moxie, or the megalomaniac. He's a guy that is, he just wants to be seen. He wants to be famous. He is a consultant for a show that's very much like Dragnet, and he consults on that. And he does these things. And he also, he is somebody that's in cahoots with another M, the media, right? So that media is portrayed by a character called Sid Hutchins. He's played by Danny DeVito, very central characters, and also one of our hat characters. So we'll get back to him in a little bit. But I also want to introduce another one of the M's, which is Guy Pearce's character. He plays Ed Exley, and he is the morality. He's the good cop. He's the guy that's trying to do the right thing. He's always trying to go and try to, but he makes a turn. At some point during the movie, you're like, oh God, he goes from the good guy to a guy that is just, he's also in a way kind of an egomaniac. He's all about achievement, right? He wants to go, and he is a legacy. His dad was a cop and died in the line of duty, right? That's a common theme that we see in real life and also in film, where somebody's a second generation cop. So he has that legacy that he's trying to live up to, and in many ways surpass. His dad was a very well-known cop, and he wants to do everything his dad did, but better. He's the morality. But those three central characters, the muscle, the moxie, and the morality, they don't wear hats. At least from what I can remember throughout the whole film, they do not wear hats. But we will talk about them in relation to those folks that do wear hats. And I guess we'll start off with the media. So let me share some photos that way, because for the folks that don't that haven't watched the film, I think photos will help, because then you can see the hat. You can kind of see what I'm seeing here, and and then basically we'll react in real time to this. And obviously, if you're no stranger to the show, you'll know that I always have a little trouble sharing my screen, so it takes me a little while. So give me a second here while I try to bring up the slideshow. Again, I'm pretty sure it's probably user error, but it could also just be buggy software. Doesn't matter. We will get it figured out. Let me try to share my screen again. It always just takes a while to make it happen. Let me just keep doing this. Bear with me. This is where I got to get music on my on my show here. That way we can do justice to some of these. It'll be like the Jeopardy theme. I think that's what I need, is the Jeopardy theme to be playing. Let's see if this will take here. So I'm going to share. Still not. This is taking just a little bit longer than it usually does, but that's okay. We will eventually get it out, get it on the screen. Let's see. Let me just make sure that it is, yeah. Boop. I feel like it's going to happen any second now. Just me keep doing it. I haven't figured out a way other than just keep trying it for it to work. But it's something that I've already complained about to StreamYard, and I feel a little bad about complaining, because I am using this software for free. So I'm a little reticent to like go and lay into them. They are providing the software for free. As far as I know, I'll probably be able to keep using the software for free, because I don't stream that often. So I'm just going to just give them a little bit of grace, because they could be like, hey, dummy, you're just using it wrong. And they could probably be right. Let's see. Man, this is really giving me a problem, but I'm going to get it on here. Sometimes you have to just be tenacious. I think that's kind of like a life lesson. So, I didn't do this on purpose, but the happy accident is that this is probably a life lesson for tenacity. Share screen. This is what I always do. Come on, just work, please. Pretty please. Let's see if I try something else here, if it work. From my computer. Okay, that's not working. Pardon me, guys. Paul, did you already talk about your hat that you're wearing?
I haven't. No, it's I don't know whether you recall. Last week I was making a hat which I thought was going to be a Homburg, and
yeah,
I did a silly thing. I started making the hat without looking at my specification for Homburgs, and actually I cut the brim slightly too big. I mean, I cut the brim just over 7 centimeters, and what I forgot was that normally a Homburg's brim width would be between 5.5 and 7 centimeters. So when I started curling it and everything, it actually the balance between my head and the hat was just not right. It just wasn't working. It was like, oh no, So I went and had a cup of coffee, and I thought, you know what, I'm gonna make this into a fedora. Now what I've done is I've got on the back here. This is a 25 no, a 20 mil trim. So
Yeah.
it's connected on the front, and then it's wrapped over, so you can't see any of the stitching on the top here, which is lovely.
Yeah.
And then it's stitched underneath, all the way around in the matching brown. And then this is a two, I think it's a 210 or 240 gram weight. So this is
240.
a heavy Western felt, and
Okay.
it's got a nice sort of 12 centimeter crown, 38 mil grosgrain in a bronze color.
Yeah.
And then inside, with a teardrop top there, but inside it's got one of my linings. But it's also, I've been working with the guys over in America on the leather sweatbands, and these are about 2 inches deep, so they're much deeper than the ones we get in the UK. And this one, which is like a natural color, is a lot softer. So it's not quite the Rowan leather, which is like a sheepskin leather, but about the closest I've ever seen of it. So I'm very pleased about these. I'm going to bring in some more from America, but in essence, that's the hat. I'm quite pleased with it. It's 40% beaver, 60% rabbit, and it's a long-haired felt. So you can actually see the hairs on the hat when you get close up, and when you brush it, you can clearly see that they're all going in the same direction. Which it's a nice finish to a hat, to be fair.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. And then did you again, you probably maybe you already mentioned this. Is this a commissioned work?
No, it was well, it's just one I fancied on a Friday night for myself, you know. But it was just, for myself. But I think, like all of the hats that we make as hatters, we end up perhaps wearing them once or twice, and then they're up for sale on the website, and somebody is either wanting one the same. So I usually buy about 3 felts in the same material. So I've got 2 other felts in this material. If somebody says, Paul, love the hat, but my size 59, I've got a 59 block, I can make it, so it's no problem, you know. Or I'll sell this if they want it. But you know, I'm quite pleased with it, how it turned out. So yeah, that's my hat today.
All right, that's beautiful. I mean, I think, hey, we got some you got some more hat envy here. Yeah. It's
well, there you go, Ian.
Yeah, I mean, again, I feel like Ian is going to be no stranger to PJ Murphy and Son. I'll tell you that. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to actually meet yet. Have you guys shared that pint yet?
Funny you should say that. I don't know whether Ian's happy for me to mention, but I'll go ahead and mention it. That we're going to meet up towards the back end of this month. The first beer or coffee is on me, because Ian very kindly commissioned me for his hat. I'm going up to London. We're actually going to do a tour of the hat shops, and probably end up in a place called Covent Garden to have a spot of lunch or dinner, depending on what time of day we end up getting up there. But I just thought, you know, it's a nice time of year going into autumn. You know, it's temperature is sort of okay, and so we're planning before the end of this month.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. That's, again, it's one of those things where you know, we always talk about the idea of the relationship, but we don't really say that lightly. You know, there really is kind of like, I guess that's a good thing for a hatter, right? Maybe don't become a hatter if you don't want to and you don't value relationships, because I feel like that's really kind of like the big payoff, right? Or one of the payoffs of becoming a hatter is that you get to have, and you're essentially opening yourself up and your life up to your customers in many ways, because they want to be part of you, right?
Yeah, I guess it's a bit more intimate than just selling a bag of crisps over the counter. You know, when you're selling a hat, you are getting to know more about the individual and about their life and their lifestyle, their fashion style, and so on. But you know, and like you say, you know, I would have never have met you, Luke, Josh, if it wasn't for hatting. You know, you know, you're not. It's just not on my wavelength. So in terms of being out there and meeting a gentleman in America, you know, so so I feel you know, quite pleased that that hatting has enabled me to do that. And
oh wow, agreed. I've already, like, my Facebook network has already grown by leaps and bounds. You know, it's just amazing because it's one of those things we always talk about, like your network and how important it is to make sure that you guard your network, right? You don't want to have everybody, every single person in your network, but it's one of those things where it's less of a problem with hatting, I think, only because I just find that some of the best people happen to be in this hobby. And again, it's not, I will mention this again, it doesn't mean that everybody out there is going to be your cup of tea, but I just find like we have so many great people, in this hobby that I just find myself more often than not saying accept. If you have a hat on, I'm probably gonna accept your friend request because I just haven't had too many people that be part of my network that I'm like, okay, I shouldn't have done that. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And I'm still struggling with this with these photos. This has given me the most trouble out of any so at some point I will give up, but the stick with itness here is, I'm gonna try. Let's see if this just
So
lets me
shall I
do
pick up
this.
on Josh what you've just said there about the Bailey long-haired hats? I bought a couple of long-haired. What were they? They were Herbert Johnson's. They were actually the hat that Doctor Who used to wear back in the probably 90s or so, and they were genuine 1960s hats. And I bought them for next to nothing. Just gave them a good clean and restored them, and I learned what I wanted from them, and I sold them for a huge profit because they were so collectible. So whatever you do, deconstruct it and rebuild it so that it looks as good, if not better, than it started life, because you've got a bit of an asset there.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the major extra lesson here for those folks that are kind of budding hat nerds. To kind of there we go. Let's see if am I still on?
You are.
Okay, good. So I'm just sorry, I'm just still messing with these photos. But I think in terms of lessons learned for those that are just starting off their vintage journeys, you can and with not a lot of money, you can get started on this on the vintage side, and obviously you don't want to buy every single hat, but you can learn here. Like you'll see a swath of hats that Luke wears, that Paul might wear, and any of our guests might wear, and then you start coming up with, this is the kind of hat that I want. And I go into a lot of the history of the hats, and you can start really picking up what your style is before you even drop any coin. And I feel like it's going to be beneficial for you and save you a lot of money. Paul has already dropped a lot of great knowledge here about his process, and how he just got started with how he got into hats to begin with, right? Paul had a health reason for getting into hats, but that led him to go from vintage to breaking down and refurbishing those vintage hats. And now he's a full-blown hatter making custom hats. And you may not have the same journey, but you can still benefit a lot from what Paul has to say. And from all of us have to say, as consumers versus refurbishers, or even just hatters to begin with. Like they're all part of the process. And like I said, who knows? Maybe at some point I will become a hatter. I don't know. Right now, it's probably not going to happen, but never say never, right? It's one of those things where I'm like, I know myself too much to say I'll never do it, because I just might, right? I just might. I'm going to try this one more time, and then I'm just going to ditch it, because I don't know why StreamYard just decided that it's not going to reward my tenacity. One thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna. It says to reload the page. I'll reload this page and then see if this works, because, and if I go off camera, just give me a second here. I'm gonna.
Cool. I think we've temporarily lost him, but I'm just picking up on what you've put on there, Josh, about the Borsellino. Great. I mean, if you can get a Borsellino at a discounted price and use it for learning, marvelous. And very rarely have I sold a Borsellino at a loss, because by the time you've actually cleaned it, steamed it, shaped it, they all look fantastic. Some of them dip more so than others, but yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I heard Borsalino and I'm like, okay, yes. The answer is always yes, unless by buying that Borsalino, you are somehow like deciding that you're not going to eat food anymore. That would be the only time I will tell you say no to the Borsalino, because, and then in the other circumstance is something that I mentioned the other day, which is, if you don't want a Western weight, make sure that you're paying attention to whether or not, right? My buddy Jeff from the Fedora Lounge cautioned us, right? I had a discussion with Jeff as well as Nathan about his recent Borsalino that left a bad taste in his mouth. But what Jeff opined was, well, it looks like you might have gotten a Western weight Borsalino that was made for the Jewish community. And those Western weights are a lot heavier. They're not as plush. So if you're looking for one of those plush Borsalinos, you get one of those Western weights, well, then you didn't get what you really wanted to get. And please don't disparage the Borsalino brand. They did that for a reason, because those hats get worn every day and they have to be tough. So it's just one of those things where you have to, maybe if you have a chance to feel it or ask questions of the person on the other end before you hit the buy button, because Borsalinos, for good reason, you can get one for a good price, but they do command a little bit of a premium. I think they're well worth the premium, to be honest. Everybody has different opinions, right? Morgan is not a huge fan, but that's because Morgan is spoiled by Huff Bud, right? There's no, you can't really disparage her for not liking Borsalino when she has Huff Bud as her litmus, right?
Yeah, I mean, we'd all love a Huff Bud. I mean, I think I've bought a Hornscoff before now, but and sold it on. But you're talking about the royalty of hats here. They're expensive hats. They're beautiful felt, and very,
you're not gonna do. Yeah, well, Steve was telling me, "Oh, I got it working. Look at that.
Yeah,
I got it working." So yeah, you're not gonna. My buddy Steve, Steve Heck, mentioned the brand Optimo. Optimo is a mega brand, and he's actually familiar, I believe, with the owners of that brand. Again, I believe they're based out of Chicago. Yeah. So we're talking about $1,000 hats here, right? But you don't buy those, right? You don't buy those like the same way Luke buys vintage hats, right? Unless you have that kind of coin, right? So if you're kind of like the millionaire in LA Confidential and you got that kind of coin, then God bless, right? More power to you. I support other people supporting Optimo, because I can't afford it right now. Well, maybe not. Maybe I haven't made the use case yet, but right now I'm more apt to support a hatter like Paul, a hatter like Brian Forbes, a hatter like Joshua or Josh, because one, I know you, I have a relationship already with you guys, and I know that Optimo is probably doing quite well for themselves. So shout out to Optimo, great brand, really, really great. There's so much, guys. There's so many comments here that I missed. Let me just get you. It will be interesting to hear what you discovered, Joshua. There's a Borsalino being sold for $10 near me. Yes, the answer is yes. And Borsalinos have great felt. Yes, $10 Borsalino, even if it's a Western weight, you can always convert it into a Western hat, and it's still a Borsalino. I'd buy that for $10. If not, let me know and I'll give you the $10.
Just on a note on that one, I've bought secondhand hats before now, deconstructed them, looked at the size, and they've been on the small size, and I've managed to steam them out to a bigger size and actually turn them into a totally different hat. But you do have to have the proper blocks, the proper brim cutters, and everything else. But you can really do that. And the average person, well, actually, I've included myself, I wouldn't necessarily know that was a vintage felt if it's been kept well and if it's a good quality one and been well cleaned.
Yeah. And again, when you're buying online, right, we've all kind of like alluded to the perils of buying online. It's a gift and a curse, right? You can get some really great deals on eBay, but it's only as good as the seller's description, right? oftentimes a lot of people that sell great hats on eBay are not hat people. They are not people that take care of hats. They might be thrifters, right? Nothing wrong with thrifting, but if you're not a hat person, you're probably not taking care of that hat. You probably don't know how to brush a hat, and why you need to brush a hat. And when you ask questions, when a hat nerd asks a question of a non-hat person, you're gonna get very cryptic answers and sometimes a bunch of bunk. We've all experienced that. And be prepared that they're gonna send you a Borsalino in an envelope.
Yeah. Oh gosh, how many times have I had a hat turned up that's been crushed?
Yeah.
Or well, it's probably more often than not, actually, more often than not. But every now and then you find a gem. And let's put it into perspective. If you think of something like this, which is obviously a brand new felt, well, this brand new felt was probably £125 just as the basic.
Right.
So what's that? $150, $175 just for the basic material before you even start dressing it. So when you look that something like this would have to be £350, something like that in the UK. That's an awful lot of money. I mean, in the UK, there aren't many hatters that are charging that for hats. So that's the sort of dilemma. And so therefore, buying the older hats that do have some good felts, but they're perhaps not big enough for people's head, they're not the style of today, and so on, does make sense.
Yeah. And it's a crime, right? When you see that, you just get horrified, and when you hear it, but it's actually happened where somebody goes and pays and they think they're getting their Grail vintage find, and then it arrives to them in a letter envelope, right? You just want to scream, but they don't know any better, right? Like, and they're just trying to chip it to you as cheap as possible.
Yeah, I mean, some of the older hats were quite stiff, and of course that's through the shellac being added to the felts. And over the years, especially with hand manipulation, where you're touching the hat, it will become softer. And so therefore, part of the skill of the hatter is looking at, when they're cleaning it and they're looking at the style and they're doing their research perhaps on the internet, just to see how much stiffness would that hat have had when it was new. Would it have had a softer crown? And therefore, you can manipulate the crown, whatever, and a stiffer brim. And I, on many occasions, I might give one cover of shellac to the crown and 3 covers to the brim, and it makes a nice sort of balance. But that's, again, what you're looking at is what should I do to this classic hat to really preserve its style as it was first made.
Yeah, and a hat tip I will go for that situation is, if you're buying on eBay or Facebook Marketplace and somebody's going to ship you a hat, assume they're not a hat person. Use your words to carefully say, hey, I hate to, and I'm always very polite. I will say, could you just tell me a little bit about how you plan to ship the hat? I'm willing to pay for the postage if you can ship it to me priority, right? And maybe I will pay for a priority flat rate box. Can you ship it in a priority large hat, box? Because I know from experience that a hat can fit in there. A pretty large hat can fit in there without getting crushed. And what are they going to say? No, if you're willing to pay for it, chances are, unless they're like some kind of ogre, they're going to say yes. So just assume that they're not a hat person. So.
That's a good tip, actually, Luke. I mean, what I've been doing for quite a while now is, whenever I advertise a hat for sale, whether it's on my website or whether it's on eBay or whatever, I actually photograph the hat box that I send the hats out in, and it just reassures people. And I mean, look, you've only got to look at my eBay feedback to see that it's 5-star, and it's very complimentary about the packaging as well as the hat. But it's important that when you're, I mean, it's not usually it's not an insignificant amount of money that people are paying out for a second-hand hat, especially if they're buying it from myself. It might be £100 or more, and you want to make sure that you're getting something that's worth £100. And there would have been maybe an hour or so gone in there in terms of labor to actually clean and steam, and maybe more if you're putting on shellac and so on. And then I don't charge for the box; I include it in the price of the hat. So but it's so much worth putting that image in place because of what you've just said.
Correct. Correct. And that goes with opening the box as well. If you're somebody that opens a box with a razor blade, which I do, but I do so expecting that the person did not pack it very well. It's just you have to do that because the last thing you want to do is put a brand new slash on your vintage grail that you just got.
Another tip for young Josh is that, or young Josh, for Josh, sorry. I have these stickers made up, and these stickers are what I use to seal the box.
Yeah.
That way, that if the box is tampered with, I put a wrapper around the box, but if the box is tampered with and it's opened, then and these are broken, then we know that somebody's actually gone in there who shouldn't have gone in there.
Yeah, and if you don't have stickers, I will add is the old school way of doing that is to write a word on there and tape the word, right? So let's say you don't have to put your own. Sometimes I will do my own signature, but you can put any kind of and I'll write in cursive because I'm showing my age. In cursive, I'll write something like my signature, and then I'll put a piece of tape over it. So if it's been tampered with, that signature will no longer be intact.
Good idea.
So, that's just a play on what Paul just said. Just giving you guys tips because I want this channel to be accessible for budding hat nerds and those seasoned nerds as well. So
I think the challenge, Luke, is when you're starting off in hatting, investing money is a big question mark because you've got no income. If this is Josh's first hat, then he would have paid out money for blanks, for equipment, and spent his time, and for all of the materials that costs. And it's only now that he's going to start getting some funding back. And I as I said before about my journey, I bought and sold the vintage hats, and the profit from that I plowed it into buying all the equipment. But to do hat making properly and to build what ultimately become a business does take investment, and and that's where where you've said you want to support people like myself and others is so important because it's really, really appreciated by us, honestly, because you go at this with faith that that it's going to work because it's a love that you have, it's a passion, it's a and you want to share that, but not everybody gets it, not everybody gets it, but it's unusual that I find that I don't get many people that want to haggle on the price, but I end up either slipping them a hat brush or working with them on something else, and I think it's that give and take that you have to build a relationship with your client, because the other thing that I mentioned to Josh about is that if you do a good job with your client, then they will mention it to other people, like you heard Ian very kindly mentioned about the hat I've made for him, and also if they get a lot of positive feedback when they're wearing their hat, a lot of clients come back to me and say, Paul, I've had so much pleasure from the hat, I'd like to order another one. I had a gentleman this week, I've made quite a few hats for him now, and he's recuperating for an illness at the moment, and I think all he does is look at my hat videos, but he's come back and he asked for different colors. So what I normally do when I'm talking about hats, I get some color samples out and I photograph the different felts that I've got and so on. So I sent him a photograph with 3 felts in, and he fell in love with 2 of them. So he said, look, I'm just going to think about it, and I know what he's going to do. He'll come back and say, look, I can't decide, I'm going to have one of each, please, and it'll go like that. That's lovely. I mean, but this is where you build a relationship with your client, and you don't put any pressure on them to buy anything else. You just get to know them, and you email them every now and again, how's it going, whatever. And it's lovely. It's a really, really nice experience. So I wish you well, Josh.
Yeah, a good hatter is not unlike a good mechanic, a good plumber, a good whatever gentleman or female, right? Now they're not just male, but whatever person that you can say, like, when you find a good one, you're happy as a clam, right? I have a gentleman that works on my car. I don't have a fancy car. It's a Toyota Corolla. It basically almost never breaks down, but when it does, I call this gentleman and he comes right to my door and fixes my car, and he does a great job, charges a really reasonable fee, and I never haggle with him because the guy's already the best. He's gold, right? Like, why do you haggle with gold? So I'm like, You want a drink? I'll make you a drink now after you fix my car, not during. But you know what? Like, you want to just invite him to dinner because you're like, how do I show you that I'm really appreciative other than what I've already done? You know, maybe a tip or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah. But let me before we get too long in the tooth here, Paul, I'm gonna just admit I'm still looking at the hat right behind you.
Oh yeah. Honestly, it's I've been, you know, you can't miss it here, can you? But and this is obviously, I was just finishing it before I came on, so this is like I've been looking at the way through. It just looks great. It's just
you're gonna have to send me photos, like proper photos, before this hat gets shipped, because I want to have something to tide me over, because I cannot stop looking at it right now, and now I'm fixated. So I'm gonna try to not to look too dumb here as I share my screen. But yeah, thank you, Paul. That looks gorgeous. And just FYI, my plan is to wear this when I stream about the Mets. Also, if I have Mets gatherings, if somebody likes this hat well enough, obviously I'm gonna tell them where I got the hat, and who knows? You never know. Somebody might say, "Hey, Paul."
Yeah. Cool.
Make sure you get more of that orange.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So just in case, right?
I bought 30 meters of it. I think that's enough.
Yeah, exactly. Well, good, because you know, you kind of like it's a good problem to have, right? So here goes. I'm going to share my screen. Let me make sure. Hopefully, you guys can see that. And yeah, so we talked. We've already talked about the 3 M's, right? Well, actually, we talked about the 4 M's. We talked about the muscle, the moxie, and the morality, but none of those guys wore hats. The media, this is the first real hat guy that we see on this movie. And this is Danny DeVito. Everybody knows Danny DeVito. He did the movie Twins with Arnold Schwarzenegger. So many movies from Danny DeVito. But he plays the sleazy media guy, right? This is actually based off of like in the 50s, you had these reporters, and we still have them. We have the paparazzi, we have TMZ, we have the National Enquirer. We know about like those, we call them like smut peddlers, right? At least in the US, we call them smut peddlers. I don't know about the UK. But he's very much a smut peddler. He's a guy that will go and he works with the Moxie. He works with Jack Vincennes to create stories, right? He will go, and he's not opposed to framing an individual, especially a Hollywood character, for a big story. So here he is with his kind of a trilby looking hat there.
I would go to say that looks very much like a Dobbs
yes,
trilby, doesn't it? I mean, it looks as though it's probably about 2¼ inch brim on it and a 10 centimeter crown. I mean, you know, very classic look, really lovely.
Yeah, very much a stingy brim. So this LA Confidential is definitely one of those movies, right? We always talk about the high crown, and we have that in this movie. Don't get me wrong, we do have the high crown. But this is, remember, this takes place in 1953. So now with the crown heights, right? Not the part of Brooklyn, but the measurement of the crown on a hat. It is gradually getting it's lower. As you know, in coinciding with the automobile, and also just general taste in fashion. So what we're seeing here is a nice example of a stingy brim, and I got to agree with you, Paul. I do think it's a Dobbs. It looks like a classic Dobbs to me, or something of Hat Corporation of America.
Yeah,
but it screams press, right? So when you see this man, you're like, okay, obviously he's in front of a typewriter here, but you know right away this is a member of the press. So, you know, he's a sleazebag. I mean, this is him, another photo of him. You can see he's a very short, statured man, and you see a profile. You can see some of that stingy brim from a side. This is Jack Vincennes here on the right. This is Kevin Spacey's character. And they're kind of, this scene right here, you can see the marquee in the background. They're in the process of trying to plot. The media, Sid Hutchins, his character has already paid Jack Vincennes to set up these characters to bust them, essentially. These are two Hollywood types, or at least one gentleman is a Hollywood actor, and he's going to bust them, but he's going to bust them while Danny DeVito's character is going to be filming, shooting photos. and getting the scoop, right? So that's this scene right here. So again, there's really very few redeeming characters in this movie. They're all kind of sleazebags. Even the morality ends up being kind of a sleazy person, as you'll find out in as you watch the movie. So yeah, just and then we have one final shot of Danny DeVito's character. This is kind of more of a close-up shot. Hopefully this comes across okay here. You can see him on the phone, and you get a nice shot of that, that kind of Dobbs, maybe kind of Trilby-esque stingy brim that he's wearing.
Interestingly, I don't know, but it looks as though it's got an underfold on it. So underwell, where they take the felt and they curl it and then put it under and then stitch it round, and they do it both ways, over and under. It's quite a difficult thing to do when you're doing it by hand. But I mean, when it's mass produced, then I think they have a process for doing it. But I wouldn't mind betting that he's actually got that on that hat.
Well, interesting that you mentioned that, Paul, because what I'll do here is I'm wearing a Kavanaugh, which is all like these brands, Dobbs, Kavanaugh, right? John Kavanaugh and Knox were all members of the Hat Corporation of America. And the technique that you're describing, Paul, is pretty much, it describes to a T the Kavanaugh edge, it's called. It's a proprietary technique that John Kavanaugh had patented. I forget what year he made the patent, but he actually patented it much later than when he developed it. And we know about John Kavanaugh, the man, based on my live streams, he was somebody that would not just create those patents, he would enforce it. So the Kavanaugh edge is something that I don't think it's lost. I don't think anybody really does the Kavanaugh edge, at least the way it used to be done by Kavanaugh. It was probably one of those secrets that might always be lost, or maybe somebody else is doing it. I just don't know it. But it very much exists. When you would see it on a Knox hat, it would be called a custom edge. So if it's a Kavanaugh hat like this one, it'd be called Kavanaugh edge. When it's on a Knox, it was same thing, same technique, but Kavanaugh gave it the term custom edge. So maybe this is a Knox. It's possible that this is a Knox instead of a Dobbs. I'm not familiar. I have several Dobbs. As far as I'm concerned, I don't know if any of them has one of these edges. So at the very least, this could be a Kavanaugh, or it could be a Knox. Same family. So this kind of covers the character of the media, Sid Hudgens, and one of the hat characters. So in the interest of time, I'll just go into the next photo here, and then we can get some reactions to the hats. But this is another major character here. So this is Dudley Smith, Captain Dudley Smith. And you guys all probably know this actor. If you don't know his name, you know of him somehow. His name is James Cromwell. Very, very, very well-known actor. If you're a Star Trek fan, you will know him as Zach. Sorry, not Zach Efron. Something Efron. Maybe it's Zeke. I forgot his first name in Star Trek, but he's a central character in Star Trek, and he appears. But he's made so many movies. He plays, I believe, in an Irish cop. It's a very stereotypical kind of Irish cop character in this movie, but he happens to be a captain. And again, spoiler alert, his M is the mystery, and by the end of the movie, he becomes the menace, right? So that's his M. And you can see here the hat that he's wearing. It's very, very much it's a higher crown, right? Very, very classic hat. And it's kind of a throwback hat. So this is a man of authority. You can see here that his height adds to his character, right? You can see that he's towering above this member of the media on the left, and also above Ed Exley, who actually doesn't have a hat and also wears glasses. And they make fun of it in the movie. Like everybody in the beginning of the movie is like, lose the glasses. Nobody's going to take you seriously with glasses. So there you go. This character is a central character in this movie. And you can see this very first scene where he dons this hat, and it adds to his allure. So yeah, I just wanted to make sure that I gave you guys a chance to react to the hats here. But this gentleman, I mean, I think James Cromwell is like 6'6" or 6'7", to give you an idea of the height on this gentleman. And they take advantage of it in the movie. Like, it really is, again, this is a neo-noir film. And that height, they really, really play. The hat and the height really adds to the statuesqueness of this character, and that he's a guy that's not to be trifled with. Let's see if we got another shot here of Dudley Smith, and this is on the scene of a crime, and you can see this is kind of like he's a commanding presence. He towers over everybody in the film. All right. And then we'll get into another character. Now, this is not a fedora, darn. This next character is a character called Lynn Bracken, right? So I'll bring her on screen, but she doesn't don a fedora, but she dons headgear. Sorry, that's I kind of stole my own thunder. That was supposed to happen later. I'll get to that character later. But this is kind of how you see this character in the beginning of the film. And her M is the women in this film, just like everybody else, they're not savory characters, right? She is, you can see that she has some kind of headwear here. It's kind of a hood that she's wearing. And she is kind of a blonde bombshell. And her M is either she's a mimic, right? So if you see this film, every woman in this film is some sort of sleazeball. At least most of them are. They're like a harlot, a prostitute. There's somebody that the millionaire, right? That's the other M. The millionaire that we haven't talked about a lot here. He goes and he gets these women and gives them plastic surgery so they can look like Hollywood icons. And what he does is he pimps them out to these other unsavory characters for money, and just so that the character can say they were with a woman that looked like Marilyn Monroe. In this case, she looked like Veronica Lake, or any other of these Hollywood icons, and just to fulfill some sexual fantasy for these men that pay for their companionship. So this is Lauren, what's her name? Lynn Bracken. And this is another angle of that same shot of Lynn Bracken when she meets with the Muscle, who falls in love with her. Ed White character, remember we talked about the Muscle. He goes and you can see that smile that he has on his face. He's enraptured with this woman. Like, he kind of knows that she's trouble, right? It's always that same theme in Ian added, in real life, many bosses are tall. Yes. One thing that Ian brings up that is actually a truism. If you look at elected leaders, if you look at CEOs, and you look at a lot of leaders historically, they all have been men of height, right? So you can see like a lot of presidents, not that we haven't had short presidents, but you can see a lot of great leaders. A lot of them were like 6'2", 6'3", or taller. Abe Lincoln obviously is iconic. You know, a guy that was like 6'4". On top of that, he wore a top hat, like the steam type hat, and made him even taller, right? So yeah, I think that is a truism that you don't have to be tall to be a leader, but it just so happens that a lot of taller individuals, right, usually men, they will be given, they're the ones that occupy these great positions. So just happens to, don't shoot the messenger. I'm just telling you something that I happen to know has some truth to it. So thank you, Ian, for adding that. But here you can see again that this is a guy that doesn't really smile very often. He sees this woman. She has a hood on. He knows that she's trouble, but he can't help to think that, wow, this is a beautiful woman in front of me. Just to go show you, like I said, sometimes us guys, we don't know any better. We know somebody is trouble, but we can't help it. Ian will add, not the naughty ones like Napoleon or the one with the funny mustache. Yes, correct. Again, everybody talks about the Napoleon complex. There's a reason, right? There's that whole concept, right? And it's And obviously that doesn't mean that if you're short that you have a Napoleon complex. That's not what I'm trying to say. It's just that that concept does exist, and there is a psychological basis for that concept. But thank you, Ian. Yes, agreed. So yeah, this again, I thought this photo was really iconic. Not that it had a fedora in it, but it did have a headwear, and it adds some mystique to this woman, right? We talk about how hats altered the character arc. I thought this was really smartly played by the costume designer here. I believe her name was Ruth something. I can't remember her name, but the costume designer for this movie must have had some idea that we're gonna put this hood on, and I think it gives her an innocence, but also gives her like, oh wow, this is what's up, what's going on with this gal? There's something going on here, and he just happens to be caught. This is in a liquor store, and he's like taken aback by this woman, and actually starts a conversation with her. Right? Like everybody has that kind of that. If you either experienced it yourself or you kind of know of that guy that sees that woman at the bar, right at the corner of their eye, and he just can't stop looking at this woman. And then at some point, maybe he pounds enough liquid courage to go out there and talk to that gal. This is kind of what happened to this gentleman, except that he's in the process of getting smashed. Right? He's getting the booze to go bring to the precinct to get smashed. He's not drunk yet, but he's kind of drunk with the beauty of this woman and the mystique of this woman. So just to kind of play a little bit into character. And then once it gets revealed, eventually he falls in love with this woman, right? And this woman is somebody that sleeps around. This is one of those women that sleeps around at the behest of the millionaire. But this guy can't help but falling in love with this troubled woman. And we see her later on don a piece of headwear, but it's a lot more innocent, right? Once we kind of say, okay, this is a troubled woman, but she's actually a good guy. Like this is even though she has a checkered past and she's done some naughty things, I feel like this lighter colored headwear is no accident. We talked about it with The Godfather about how the costume designer, Western costume company, used color to kind of add to a character, right? When Don Corleone, when Michael Corleone went and started off with the black Homburg, he eventually gradually shifted to a lighter colored Homburg. And I can't help to think that wasn't an accident. So this is just a scene here where she's talking to the morality, Ed Exley, kind of towards the later parts of the film. And we see this brightening of this character. So I just want to kind of put that as she's wearing a kind of like a beret. I don't know anything else other than this is a beret. But I think it looks good on her. One, it's very flattering look on her, but also adds to her character. And then lastly, but not least, I kind of stole the thunder, but this is a character that that you see here with Lynn Bracken here. But he's very much got a, you can't see it all here, but you can imagine that it's a very high crown fedora here. It's flipped down. And you can see here in the background here, out of focus, that's the muscle. That's Bud White visiting Lynn Bracken's house for the first time. And she's in the process of having a tryst with this gentleman when Bud White knocks on the door. And you can see this guy, you can see his body language, right? His body language, he has this hat on. He doesn't have the hat on earlier in the film. What's happening earlier before the scene happens is they're watching a movie with Veronica Lake. Remember that this gal, Lynn Bracken, is supposed to be, she works for the millionaire, and she goes out and sleeps with men who want to sleep with a woman that looks like the actress Veronica Lake, right? If you want to know what movie they were actually watching a movie. I believe it was called, let's see if I can pull up the name of the movie that they were watching on screen. It was called This Gun for Hire, a 1942 movie with Veronica Lake and Alan Ladd. Very much, Alan Ladd is an iconic actor that was known for his noir films and his hat style. So this guy, he's trying to do his best impersonation of Alan Ladd here because he's trying to, one, have sexual relations with Lynn Bracken, and he's trying to relive his fantasy of having sex with with Veronica Lake, kind of like in This Gun for Hire. So there's a movie tie-in here, a movie within a movie. But the character arc, right? This happens to be a city councilman. So he's a very powerful man, and he's emboldened by the fedora. So this is a very sneevily conniving guy, not a tough guy, right? He's a politician. But when he donned the fedora, he almost took on the persona of Alan Ladd when he donned the fedora. He answers this, when she answers the door, he's like, you can see he's trying to like intimidate Bud White. He doesn't know who Bud White is, but he thinks that because he has this fedora on, he's going to intimidate Bud White. But he picked the wrong guy to intimidate. So quite quickly, he tells Lynn, he says, hey, you want me to get rid of this guy for you? And then Bud goes immediately, pulls out his badge and says, hey, dipshit, I'm LAPD. So if you don't want me to, I know who you are. If you don't want me to tell your wife, you better get out of here. So right away, he drains the courage right away from the city councilman. He removes the hat, right? He breaks the visage that he was trying, the persona that he was trying to engender here, and he puts his clothes on, apologizes. He says, officer, and then leaves. He scurries away. A really powerful scene. This character has another scene later on where they show and expose him. They essentially bribe him and get him to sway his decision on a major case by showing him photos of having this tryst. Ian Reed says Alan Ladd was also a Lilliputian. Well, there you go. He was a shorter individual. It goes to show you he was an icon of the film, right? We talked about towering figures like Guy Williams, who was 6'3". He played Zorro in the 1950s. Alan Ladd, it goes to show you, right? He was a guy that is not very tall, kind of like Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp is not an especially tall individual, as far as I know. Very small stature, but the hat adds to some of that persona, that image. This is, for me, if I had to pick one scene that a hat nerd can take away from this movie, it's this one. If you don't want to watch this movie, watch this scene. It happens, I believe, at the 41-minute mark or something like that in the movie. Get this movie, watch this scene. If you don't care to watch the whole movie, it's a few minutes long, but it goes to show you what they did with this character. And it was homage to the noir films. And it also kind of tells you that how central of a role hats played in this movie, and what the folks that made this movie thought about hats and how it could enhance the movie. That's kind of all I had in terms of the hats of this movie. There really wasn't a whole lot else that I could come up with. Obviously we talked about the other M's. There was the millionaire. There was a lot of other M's, and I don't want to get into it because they weren't hat people in the movie. But those were like the four characters that I found that had headwear. And this one right here stole the movie for me. Like they stole the show. Only because it was a movie within the movie. They were paying homage to the noir films that they were trying to emulate. Again, this is a neo-noir film, and I think that's why people really love this film. That's why I love the film. Ian says, read the 4 books by Elroy too. They are great. Thanks for the recommendation, Ian. I'm going to try to. I'm not very well read, but if Ian recommends it, he hasn't steered me wrong yet. I'm going to do that. Ian, you're happy to know that I started downloading the music, the ska cubano music that you have recommended. So I'm gonna keep listening to that. I'll probably start this weekend actually to start listening to some of that music. Shout out to Ian because he's a great wealth of knowledge here. He's also one of my moderators. But that's really all I had in terms of this movie. I just want to make sure I'm not like monopolizing the kind of thing. Paul, was there anything else that you wanted to add? And Ian had something here. The film is based on book 3. Thank you, Ian. That's good to know. I'm not very well versed in the noir film genre, but I want to be. Now that I'm kind of like a relatively new hat nerd, right? My hat journey hasn't been that long, but now I want to go back, and I've already seen Casablanca, right? I seen Gone with the Wind. I've seen a lot of more films. I have a new appreciation for film. I've always been a film guy, but now as a hat nerd, I watch films differently now. And that's part of my life journey now, right? Isn't that beautiful? You got Josh with a comment. If you get the chance to watch Lawless, it is a great film, I'm assuming, with some great hats. I can't recall Lawless, but you know what, Josh? I will add it to the next poll, right? So you guys already know how I do this. I will go. Oh, it looks like Ian is recommending. It's rubber stamping Joshua's advice. Thank you. I will add that, Josh and Ian. I will add that to the next poll. So look out for Fedora Friday number 3 in the poll. I'm going to re-put Godfather Part 2. I will add Lawless, and then we'll see what others. Raiders of the Lost Ark got 1 vote, so I might add that. And then we'll see what I'm going to add for the 4th movie. Oh, wow, Tom Hardy. Okay, you already got my attention. I am a big fan of Tom Hardy. I think he's very underrated, and his presence is very underrated in film. So I'm going to catch that. There's so many great movies that I want to cover. Obviously, I want to do Godfather Part 2 because I actually happen to believe that it's superior to Part 1. And I want to kind of go over that, why I think it's superior. But yeah, anything else? You guys, I want to make sure I don't...
I think the hat designs that they were wearing were quite classic hats, and the use of color was quite key as well, where they had darker hats on the more sort of austere or lawless lawmakers, and then the light grey hat on the other gentleman. But they were really classic fedoras that look really, really nice. I think when they're putting together the films, I guess they're using a lot of sort of archive material, and they're just going for a good, strong, middle of the road, and then just trying to give a little bit of a twist to make it for the people, the character that's supposed to have the money. There's the use of the better quality material. You can see in the felt that it's laying better, it's better constructed, and so on. And then like when the guy that's the news writer, his hat was a good worn everyday hat that he was obviously living in it 8 hours a day.
Yeah, and you'll make a great point. And the millionaire in this movie, this was Pratchett. His name was Pratchett, Pierce Pratchett. Such a hoity-toity name, but he was kind of very much a Great Gatsby kind of guy. But he didn't have a hat, so we never got a chance to see him in a fine hat. But I think, Paul, I agree with you. If they did hat the millionaire, they probably would have given him something very. I would have guessed maybe a Hamburg, something stately to kind of connote his status as well as his affinity for the finer things in life. Right, the early Saints films with George Sanders in black and white. All right, hey, I love this. I think I already picked the 4 movies. I'm gonna pick Godfather Part 2. I'm gonna pick Lawless. I'm gonna pick Raiders of the Lost Ark and Road to Perdition. I think those are gonna be my 4 choices for next week. Hopefully you guys are okay with that. But this is how I want to do this. I don't want to be the one that dictates things here. I want to have things be very interactive. See on Templar always.
Simon.
War in Fedora.
Simon Templar.
Simon. Okay, sorry.
Roger Moore was the actor, I think. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Ian, you know what? You are you're my new hero amongst all my many heroes on this channel because you might actually be a bigger film buff than I am. And I bow down to you because I love having. This is you've already made it cooler having you on here, Ian. So thank you. That's great. I love that. Keep those recommendations going. Ian is my director of movies and music, as well as my moderator. But yeah, I think we've already seen a framework. So now, if you guys have seen the first 2 Fedora Fridays, you already found a common theme: the use of color in hats. So the style and the color of the hat in film. If you haven't done so before, And as you watch film now and you start noticing hats on screen, pay attention to the style of the hat, to see if it's period appropriate, to see if it enhances the character, and also pay attention to the color of the hat and also how it's worn, right? If you got a hat tilt, we talked about the Frank Sinatra hat tilt, right? If they do this, that adds something too, right? Right. I just did it right on screen. I did the hat tilt, and it already changes my look, right? Right. That whole song, the hat's not a hat till it's tilted. We're gonna do Robin in the Seven Hoods, I guarantee you, because I have Robin in the Seven Hoods hanging right here. I got the Rat Pack, with me all the time here, right? I got the Rat Pack, I got Michael Corleone, and I got Rocky here. We're gonna do Rocky here too. So don't think that we're just gonna cover just all these other films. If you want to cover it, come in here and drop a comment, or after we go live, drop a comment or Facebook friend me, some kind of thing. Let me know what you guys want to see, because I'm here just like Paul tries to meet the demand of his customers. I want to meet the demand of my customers here, you guys, the viewers. And I don't want to talk about just what I want to talk about. I want to talk about what you want to talk about, right? Like I'm here having a conversation. So yeah, thank you guys. It's already been 2 hours plus, believe it or not. But I had a great time. Paul, thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Yeah, you already know that hat. I need those photos. Like, please.
I'll send you some after that. I'll go and take some photographs now, and hopefully the light will work, and I'll send you them. But as I say,
yeah.
I only just finished before the session. So, but no, look, always good to talk. Great to have Josh on today as a new joining member, as it were.
Yeah.
And yeah, looking forward to the next shows.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. And like I said, we'll talk offline about the silver belly. Again, it's not set in stone. I just want to have that process with you. Ian says cheerio. I love it. I love the UK-isms. I love the Londonisms. Again, I don't have that picture, but I'm gonna get out there. It looks like Paul and Ian are gonna get together before I have a chance. But you guys have one in my honor, because you know what? It's gonna happen. It's just a matter of time, right? And sufficient tips.
I'm sure it'll be the first of many, because having gone through the process with Ian, it was I think our conversation just flowed really nicely, and I'm here as well. And look, we're going to meet up, and I'm sure when you come over, we'll do it again and again.
Yeah. I got just, you guys are two fine blokes. I'm gonna use the language. Now bloke is going to be ingrained, so I'm going to try to keep dropping them strategically, because, again, you guys are my international audience. You know what I mean? We got Josh in the U.S. We got Morgan in the U.S. You guys are my core, and I want to make sure. We got Brian also in the West Coast, Brian Forbes. You guys are my core, and I want to make sure that I celebrate you guys, because this channel is really very small, but I don't mind. I don't mind that at all. Like, we will grow. We have been growing. Paul, thank you so much for the audience members that you've brought. Josh, you're always welcome here, either as a participant, just like Ian, or as a on-screen. You don't have to have anything prepared. We're just having a conversation. We're just a bunch of guys and also some females, right? We got Morgan. We're just having a conversation because we all love hats, and we all have different journeys, and we're just having fun here. Nothing. You don't need to prepare anything. But Paul, thank you again. This has been Paul and Luke for Fedora Friday #2. We profiled LA Confidential, 1997 film, great hat movie, big on the stingy brim. So look out for Fedora Friday #3 coming forward soon. And I already gave you what the options are. Make sure you vote. Either drop a comment or drop a vote in my post section. And make sure that you're keeping and you're subscribing to Paul's channel. You're subscribing to my channel, liking our videos. You guys know you got to be in it to win it. You got to be a subscriber to win this hat. You may hate this hat, but maybe you know somebody that might love this hat. It's a 7 1/4. It's a Knox custom. It has some moth bites, but maybe it could be somebody's first hat. Who knows? And I think it's actually, as Ian mentioned, and maybe you might be able to repair it. But I will give it to you. We'll work out the shipping. And but yeah, if you don't want to support us, that's fine. I'm okay with that. But there is one non-negotiable. I'm gonna insist, as somebody with the hat tilt, right? You know, you don't want to disappoint the guy with the hat tilt. You know, if you do one thing for the hat tilt guy and for Paul, who is also a hat tilt guy, you know, he's got the hat tilt as well. So two hat tilt guys, we got you covered. You got you surrounded from the US and the UK. The hat tilt's got you surrounded. Do us one favor. Stay hatting, my friend. Have a great day. Ciao, everybody.